This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Today we're talking to a gentleman called Peter Ellis, who has worked in Antarctica, amongst other things, twice. So welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Megan.
So tell me about going to Antarctica. What did you do when you went there?
I went down as a carpenter on both occasions. And on the second occasion to Mawson, I was also the dogman, running the Huskies on station, on the sea ice and on the plateau.
So you were the dogman. You were the dog carer?
Man.
Dog man. How many dogs are we talking?
We're talking 30 plus adult dogs, plus pups.
And what did you do with the dogs?
General training, but most of the dogs were already trained by the time I got there, of course. So you're only really training the new dogs coming through. The pups, as they grew, never pulled loads for the first 6 months and so forth. But they still had to know where they fell into the line of a dog team. Yeah, just out there and doing it.
Yeah. So what did they use the dogs for?
Primarily, it was just recreation. They were still there. Originally, they would have been used for transport. The dogs used to haul up to 800 pounds of food and supplies if you run on the sea ice. That way, you had like 2 months' supply of food for yourself and the dogs if you ever got caught out.
So, Peter, I mean, it seems perfectly logical to you, but I'm just struggling to understand where the dogs stayed and what you fed them. So tell me about all of that sort of thing. And
Okay, we had dog lines on the station. Basically, they're just long lines of dogs where the dogs used to be kept.
lines.
Well, they were chains. They were chained up, so they couldn't just race off and disappear or chase off with other wildlife. They used to get off there all the time. We'd take a run most days with the dogs. We'd do anything up to 40 k's for an afternoon. 20 k's out, 20 k's back. Yeah, they got lots of exercise. Yeah, they were good.
And you say that they were really just down there sort of from tradition, was it?
From the original dogs that would, yes.
And they use them for transport, like you always think of sort of the sleds and things being pulled by dogs. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was, we used to have man-hauling, which we did very little of it at Mawson.
What was it?
Man-hauling, where you
Man-hauling.
pulled a sled.
Oh,
Much smaller sleds.
not with the dogs on it.
No, you'd have a harness on yourself and two other people or one other person, and you'd go off and do a track somewhere and pull your own sled. So that's what we would have done at Casey because we had no dogs at Casey. But Mawson was a different kettle of fish.
And I did read somewhere in Antarctica that there's only two types of staff down there. There's scientists and support staff. Is that correct?
It used to be called RE and DHC. DHC was Department of Housing and Construction back then, but it's now Department of Housing, Construction and Science as far as I know. So it all sort of goes together.
Mm-hmm. And there's something like 43 active permanent research stations. Is that something that you are aware of?
Better to count the little islands and stuff. Of course, we've got three main stations on the Antarctica, Australian stations. Macquarie Island, which is another big one, halfway between Tasmania and the Antarctic. You have Heard Island and a few of the others that are sometimes occupied.
Right, yeah.
Overall, with the numbers you're talking about, is probably the other international countries around that have claims to different areas.
Yeah, and you were mostly at Mawson, were you?
No, Casey for the first 12 months, and I went back to Mawson for the next trip.
Right. Now, these dogs, just going back to the dogs, they're Huskies, is that right? Did they ever have any other type of dogs?
Okay, Husky is just a simple word for being snow dog.
Oh.
Okay, Huskies in America and Huskies out of Northern Europe are quite different. The bulk of our dogs, well, at least more than 50%, came down a bloodline from a Greenland Labrador and a Retriever cross. They're the big furry ones. I showed you the photos. Then there's the other line of huskies that come through from Northern America, which have a timber wolf cross in them. They're a bigger dog. They look quite different. They're not as furry to look at, but they've still got the qualities to live on the snow.
Yeah. What sort of thing makes a good dog for the snow? Is
Obedience.
it obedience? Yeah.
Most of them are pretty good. I have to admit, they really are. It's like human beings. You have smart ones, you have ones that aren't quite so smart.
I hope I fall into the former category.
So you really got to pick a lead dog, and that lead dog is the only lead dog in that team, unless it fails and dies or something else.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what does a lead dog do?
A lead dog will follow your commands. If you tell him to go left, he'll go left. If you tell him to go right, he'll stop. Okay, around mush, he'll get everyone going. But most of the dogs know those commands anyway. But without the lead dog up front, I got no idea where they'll go. We used a 9-dog centre trace. In America, they use it like a 9 or larger mixed trace, where a fan trace, so that all the dogs are out in a fanned area. So, which we never used. I don't know how I'd like that, because the dogs tend to I could easily get mixed up, get tangled up. Plus, they can be aggressive towards each other. For instance, we had a dog that wouldn't work. He was sick. He'd had too much salty water. And everyone picked on him because he wasn't working.
Really?
And they know they've got a load to pull. And if someone's not working, they'll turn around and go, come on, move along.
Wow, very much like humans in a way.
Yes.
And were you breeding the dogs down there as well?
We had breeding programs continued on all the time, just so that we had dogs coming through from the right bloodlines. You have to just mix them up so you had decent bloodlines still. As like you see inbred dogs here, they'll end up with the pinkish noses and whatnot. The environment down there is very reflective, lots of sun. So you end up having the skin cancer problems and this sort of thing, which we never did, but it's possible. There's no pigmentation in those areas and that sort of thing.
You said, Peter, that you went down there as a carpenter. How did you make the crossover to being a dog man?
I put my hand up.
And what experience had you had with dogs?
I know my own pets.
Yeah.
And a little bit, the 3 months of odd training I had with the previous dogman that was there, another Queenslander.
Oh, really? Yeah. And what sort of accommodation did the dogs have? Do they sleep in kennels?
Simple.
They sleep on the snow, out in the open.
If you brought them inside, they don't cope. A couple of dogs had some injuries. We brought them in to doctor them up because it was easier for us at 20 degrees. They basically collapse at 20 degrees.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't handle, normal temperature, +7, which is probably the hottest day we ever had down there, and for a very short period of the day. And that's about as far as they'd go.
Yeah, and they just could not cope with that.
They can't cope. They're not made to cope with it.
Yeah.
So the transition between our regional huskies that went to Mawson stayed at Taronga Park Zoo in quarantine for, I can't remember how long it was, quite a while, for years anyway. So they transitioned into the warmer climate. Then when they eventually got taken down after the Second World War, or the First World War, I can't remember the last lot of that, they had to transition back into the coal again. So
yeah, it's just a fascinating occupation. So I want to just sort of know more about life down there. I read this quote and it said, "It ain't pretty, it looks like a mining camp. It's a community, a tightly knit community, highly organised and very odd subculture of just under 1,000 people in the summer and 150 in the winter, all working towards the same thing in this remote, barren, yet stunningly beautiful continent."
Okay. If we're looking, that's the overall continent, I'd say. Again, Australia, while there's a building program that was happening while I was there was about 90 odd Australians that had winter, and that included Mount Quarry over the 4 stations. During summer, we could have up to 100 people on station because the ships would come in with the summer crew to help push the buildings and maintenance along. Then they'd leave, end of February, March. Quite the old accommodation. preferably to what I had at Mawson, which was the new accommodation.
And tell me about the difference between the old and the new.
Well, the tunnel at Casey was put there in, I think it's 1969. So it was like a donga accommodation. Each donga was attached to each other by a tunnel down the prevailing wind side. And every time you sort of got out of there, go to the toilet or go to the mess or go down to the club, you had to run down this, refrigerated tunnel, basically.
Sounds terrible.
Mawson was quite different. We had actually moved into the new accommodation when I was there. And it was more like everyone had a separate motel room. So a lot of people would disappear in the afternoon. You wouldn't see them again till the next day or work, whatever. At Casey, we had dongas with 8 people per donga. So we only had curtains between us, very small little room area. So we had a lot of communication going all the time, which was really good.
What do you mean by that? Speaking to each other, or?
Yeah. You'd see each other more often because no one's going to stay in like a 7x5 room.
Yeah.
Basically.
So for things like your meals, and you said the mess or the club or whatever, what did you go to a certain, like you go to a common eating area?
You had a common eating area. We had a chef on both stations, and sometimes they took a cook down, but whoever could cook anyway.
Yeah.
We had a roster system where one other person would be taken off their duties, no matter what their duties were, in the OIC or in a radio shack, to work with the cook every day.
Oh, really?
So that we had people rotating through, helping out doing that. Everyone did more than one job.
Yeah. So, of course, I really want to know what the relationships between people. Were there people who just didn't get on? And then the converse of that, were there people who were having romances or something?
Communication. I think it was different, once again, between the two years I was away. I'm still in contact with people I was at Casey with 42 years ago. I haven't heard anything from anyone from Mawson.
Is that right? What was the difference between the two?
I think it's just the whole setup of the accommodation. I wouldn't mind betting because Casey's moved to the new style accommodation as well. A different style building than Mawson had, but it's very different. I can't explain it really. It was more old school and new school.
Yes. Were there an equal, I can't imagine, number of men and women there, or?
Casey, we had all men.
Oh, yes.
Mawson, we had a couple of women on the station there.
Yeah. What motivated you to go? Like, what years are we talking? You said it was 40-something years ago.
Okay, so my initial thoughts of the Antarctica would go back to childhood, where I was always watching football at Jacques Rousseau, anything that was related to wildlife. And then that's never changed. I worked on the Mount Buffalo ski fields for a season, 1979, I think it would have been, 79. I met a fellow named Paul Watts who had been to the Antarctic, had been to Mawson, took me down to his house, showed me all these photos, and he said, let's watch the papers, and all the rest of the ads will come out and apply, which I did. I was living in Perth at the time because when I was Buffalo, I was on my travelling around Australia. So I travelled to Perth. I didn't hear back to him until I got back to Sydney. I was working other jobs there. Had an interview there, which I didn't get in. They said, we've got all the people we need to them. They said, apply next year and you've basically got a job, which I did. So by the time I left Sydney, got to Rockhampton, I'd only bought a house in Rockhampton, only there a couple of months. Got a phone call to say, you got a job.
Right. And what sort of age were you then, Peter?
27, I think, or thereabouts, 25, 27.
Right. And what sort of time between the first trip and the second trip?
Okay, so I spent 1982 or left in 81, came back in end of 82, and the next December I was back in Mawson.
Right. So 12 months, was it?
Just about 12 months in between.
Yeah. I'll just remind the listeners that you're on 102.7 FM. We're on Big Little Small Talk. My name's Megan O'Hara Sullivan, and we're speaking with Peter Ellis, who is telling us about, amongst other things, his 2 trips to the Antarctica in the late 70s, early 80s.
Early 1982
Yeah.
and 1984.
Were you, after the first one, Peter, did you just feel like you weren't finished?
I'm still not finished.
Right, with Antarctica.
Yeah, I'd never be able to get back, but there's always that sort of feeling you want to go back.
Is it? What is it, do you think? Is it the
Isolation.
landscape? Yeah.
It's something totally different.
Yeah.
Something way more exciting than sort of coming to a big city.
Yeah.
It's just, I suppose, there's the adventure of it, which has also changed now too, because we used to go down on ships that were under 100 metres long. Now the ships I take now are way bigger than that. My first trip down on the Nanook, we ran into force 5 gales. We had a ship that was surfing waves that were 15 metres high, lurching to 45 degrees. We did 4 knots in reverse over 4 days in a storm. Things like that. You just don't get that with the new safer ships.
Just for princesses or something, are they?
I don't know.
How did you cope with were you there when, there was either the 24 hours of dark or the 24 hours of light?
I was there for both winters, yeah. And it's not a big deal. Well, it wasn't for me because it's going to happen. It's like going to Melbourne, to Brisbane. The amount of daylight you have at the moment is quite different to Brisbane, and it just gets less than this. Tassie's a bit less. Down there is just quite different. Midwinter's day at Mawson, we had the sun over the horizon for 20 minutes. It just wrecked.
Right. So that was the amount of daylight that you had.
You have twilight either side, of course, and you adapt.
Right. And what about, were you working with the dogs then as well? And how did you kind of exercise them in the dark and stuff?
Well, we still have our twilight hours, so you still get around and still move, and it's 20 minutes this week. Next week it's an hour. It seems to grow really quickly, and the light comes back probably quicker than you realise, because you've still got the twilight at the end all the time. So that 20 minutes grows quite quickly.
I read another quote that said, Antarctica, full of badass women and mediocre men. Now, it doesn't sound like that was your experience at all, but I want to hear about some of the outlaws, I guess. Like, is it a place of extreme personalities, people hiding from the world, or extreme adventure? Now, you wrinkled up your face like I've most asked the most ridiculous question. Oh, no.
I think the original statement doesn't fit at all.
No badass women and mediocre men.
No.
I think that was a woman who said that, yeah.
Okay. No, I think everyone was pretty much on board. We have a few people that probably would have rather gone home early, got there and thought, oh, this is not quite what I expected. But most people got down and did their jobs, and it was fine.
You didn't see any extremes of people's personality, like people who were sort of going stir crazy from being there? And
Certainly heard about it from past experiences. At Casey, apparently, because Casey, they've been flying into Casey for quite a few years. And back then they used to have what they used to call the JADO bottle they put on the Hercules to get them off the ice in a hurry. Basically, it was like a rocket propelled on their rings to help them get up. They said like one year they had someone that actually was going to light one up and go home on it.
But you didn't.
Good luck to them.
Yeah, right. Peter, in your day, I read that you have to, there's a code of behaviour, and it's all about morale and teamwork and all of that. Did you have to, were you made aware that there was going to be a code of behaviour, or?
I think it should be in every workplace.
Yeah.
And I think that it most definitely is. We have fairly extensive training before you go in all sorts of avenues.
Tell me a little bit more about that, like what you're doing.
Firstly, well, I was at DHC, I was in the construction side, so we did a lot of construction, working on information of the new materials you're using or the way they wanted us to do things, how to combat and keep concrete warm enough to cure in those conditions, things like that. And then you had your normal survival trainings. I have a lodge up called Benaki in the northern part of Tasmania. And the training's, there's still snow there, so you've got to go up and dig a snow cave and survive at night. That was pretty easy. One night, that's not. You dig a hole, put a cover over you and lie down, basically.
I'll keep that in mind next time I'm
We
lost in
did
the snow.
fire training. Everyone had their own duties as if there was a fire on station, because a fire in Antarctica is probably one of the biggest events that would ever happen. You would not want to happen. I did a small veterinary course with the dogs before I went down. It was only small, but it helps. But we've got a doctor there to actually help you with anything else that needed.
What about psychological training? Was there any of that? Any how to cope with the isolation and the
Nothing specific.
yeah.
I think the psych tests you do before you go are pretty intensive. I know the psych test I did in Sydney, and I read through the question. There was questions that were exactly the same, like 40 questions apart. And I said, "That's the same question. You should have done your smart ass."
Maybe that's when they gave you the tick of approval.
The psych test I did in Brisbane to go to Boston, it was quite different. He was a Pommy that had come. He'd been testing people for the Antarctic for years and years, and he went through a lot of stuff about other guys that have been down there heaps of times. I mean, 5 times. I mean, 10, 12 times. He was probably my trainer, basically. He was probably the best to talk to.
What sort of advice did he give you? Stay
Stay
calm, right? Were you ever in sort of like a dangerous situation where you're caught in a blizzard and stuff like that?
Several.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Blizzards, I never got really well there. I'll tell you a story about one of them. But probably the only time I really feared was late in the summer after I got to Mawson. We took a track vehicle across to Bang Peak, and it was all solid ice on the way over. 2 days coming back, we were driving through 2 foot of water. So people still think the Antarctica frozen all the time. It's not. It's basically the water melts around the rock areas at that time of year, flows across and goes off an ice cliff. So our vehicle stalled in a 400-metre piece of water that was flowing quite fast and would have been close to zero. So that didn't feel very good.
What did you do?
We got the car going, or the vehicle going, yeah. So otherwise, I don't know what we would have done.
Wow.
But
So
the
that
other
wasn't-
one,
yeah.
in the blizzards, I was off on a trip with 3 other people, 2 dog teams. And we had a young geologist doing his thesis with us, youngest guy on the station, Rocky. And after a few days, one tent was starting to fall apart. It was just getting to that stage. It was getting weak, and all the things were getting weak, and Rocky was getting panicky. And we weren't very nice to him. Had to, we egged him on, because he was sitting there writing his memoirs on a cornflakes packet to his brother.
You boys were having a bit of fun with Rocky,
Oh,
were you?
we had a really good fun. And he was good.
Yeah. So you told me the other day that when you were on your days off, you'd go out sort of camping, more or less. Is that right?
Yes. Didn't matter what temperature it was. My coldest days were up on the plateau under -30. And that we're up there for 6 days on a trip like that.
What were you doing? Having a look
Sight seeing,
around?
basically.
Yeah, really?
It's part of, I suppose it's in my nature to want to do what people did in centuries before me, to do things the old way. Except for that trip across the Fan Peak I was talking about. That was probably the only time I really went in a vehicle. Every other time I went off station, I used to dogs.
And pulled what you needed on a sled type thing with the
I was
dog?
using a sled and the dog teams, yeah.
Right.
Simply because that's why I went there. I went to experience it. I didn't feel like sitting in a vehicle traveling 40 kilometers an hour across the ice was the same.
When you're camping, are you sleeping in a tent?
Slept in a tent. You saw the tents in those photos I sent you?
Yes.
That's the polar pyramid.
I'll just remind the listeners if they want to go and have a look, because Peter is also an extremely great photographer. It's called Peter Ellis Photography, isn't it?
Pittsworth. Yeah.
Pittsworth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Peter Ellis Photography, Pittsworth.
Yes.
You're
Have a
welcome.
look at that.
It's a public site.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you were in the tents. And how sort of is it? It's they say it's the coldest, driest, windiest continent on the Earth. So
Mm.
is it constantly windy?
We had an average wind speed of 23 knots at Mawson while I was there. Casey, I can't remember. But that's not every day. That's including all the, the really big blizzardy winds we've had and everything. So they average it back to 23. There was lots and lots of beautiful, days with just a mild breeze or no breeze,
Mm,
very comfortable.
mm. Tell me about the landscape. Like, for someone like me who is fascinated with the idea of Antarctica but had never been there and hope to get there one day, people say you cannot imagine just the beauty of different ice formations and the different colours. Was that your experience?
Absolutely. A lot of people would think white and black and white
Mm.
is far from it. The sunsets, sunrises, ice clouds, which are generally pink. We had, I can't remember what they're called, we had these special lot of clouds. And we all just stopped and took photos, and they were basically rainbows, but they were clouds. And they were just because of ice formations in the clouds.
Wow.
The colours are just there all the time. There's colours in the ice where they've gone past other rock formations and picked up stone off the edges of the glaciers look different. Recently, Kayla Glacier, there was something on it the other day where it goes over a liquid lake somewhere. It's possibly salty because it stays liquid under the glacier. And during the summer, it's bleeding out all this red oxide and it looks like it's bleeding
Wow.
just from the stone. So there's colours everywhere.
Yes. And what about the wildlife? Was there a lot of wildlife where you were? What sort
We
of
were pretty
things?
lucky, probably less at Casey, but Mawson, we had for penguin rookeries both sides of the station. Macy Island, which is known for it's an area called Iceberg Alley, where giant icebergs have come in, I don't know how long ago, a century ago, longer, and they're grounded, so they can't move. The sea ice has forms on the inside, and that's pretty much a permanent sea ice area because it can't blow away in the storms. It just stays there. So they're really big penguin rookeries, lots and lots of penguins. And you have Clara, and you have Taylor Glacier. Taylor Glacier, one of the photos where the penguins look like on rocky areas. They're actually a land-based rookery. I never got to Clara, unfortunately. I got as far as Taylor Glacier, and a couple of chaps I was travelling with kept too warm in their sleeping bags, believe it or not.
They got too warm.
Too warm. So you perspire, the moisture in your body goes into your sleeping bag, it freezes, then you're sleeping in a little ball of ice, basically. So by the time we got to Taylor Glacier, we turned around and come home.
What's the consequences of sleeping in that sleeping bag with it? Does your body temperature then drop down?
Not to that extent, they're dangerous, I would say. But you couldn't risk going as far as Cloa, which was another 100 odd kilometres.
Can I ask that question that I'm sure the school kids ask when the astronauts go there? How did you go to the toilet when you're going to
Like anywhere else.
just dig a hole and go, do you?
No,
What
no,
about
we-
getting all your clothes off?
Huh?
Getting all your clothes off.
Yeah, just do it in a plastic bag and take it back.
Oh dear. Well, of
It
course.
just freezes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the thing too. Was it very much, you couldn't leave anything out there? Was it very much, the conservation of it?
Absolutely. You try to maintain a better environment or the same environment as we went to when you leave. Take your rubbish out.
If you've just tuned in, we're talking to Peter Ellis on Big Little Small Talk today. And Peter has been to Antarctica twice. Once as a dogman, once as a...
Both times as a carpenter, but once as a dogman as well. Yeah.
Peter, you know those incredible stories about like Jerry Nielsen what was her name? No, Jerry Nielsen, Amundsen Scott, the
That's a long time
South
ago.
Pole Station. Well, that was in 1999. So she was the lady who was a doctor, diagnosed herself with breast cancer, did a biopsy, and then administered her own chemotherapy Was that sometime after you had been there? Were there incredible stories like that when you were there?
I know of a doctor that actually had to stitch up his own backside.
Tell me that story.
He got bitten by a leopard seal
I should
during
not.
summer,
I
too
should not know.
close to the water. If you're standing upright, they think you're a penguin, and it caught him. He was lucky he didn't end up in the water.
Yeah.
We've had a few people who have passed away down there over the years. Really unfortunate circumstances, but it does happen. Same as in Australia.
Yeah.
The only thing is we don't have big hospitals. That's a risk you're going to take when you go there. You have one doctor on station. You'll have one other person that's probably been trained in the hospital for act as a nurse. That's not actually a nurse. Yeah, that's just one of the risks.
2 questions there. One, do they have to do their turn in the kitchen as well, like everyone else?
Yes.
Yep. And 2, say if you did die down there, would you just have to be literally put on ice until the ship was going back at the
Yes.
end of the season?
Yeah. So once the last ship's gone, there's usually no other access until the next summer. Some of the other stations had bigger ships and they had bigger aircraft that can fly in. They could probably do it from other stations. But my experience down there when I was there, that wouldn't have been the case.
What was that like? Do you watch the ship leaving, and did you have a certain sense of anxiety?
Relief. See, when the last ship leaves, that means it's just your crew. It's your station. While everyone else is there, it's a much busier situation because there are lots and lots of other things going. It settles down into a nice little routine when there's only like 35 people on station.
Yes. Is there someone who's kind of, well, I suppose there would be someone who's kind of like the boss, is there?
OIC,
Right. And what does that stand for?
officer in charge.
Oh, right. And they're sort of sorting out any issues or,
Basically, their management.
yeah.
They've got to make the books balance, so to speak, make sure that have their reports of what's work's being done, what's being completed, what needed, what necessities are needed, first ship in, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Place working, basically. It's just a manager's position.
Mm. You were never, or has any crews ever been sort of in danger of not having enough supplies, not having enough food and stuff? Or the ship can't?
I don't think food. We missed out on a load of flour for our bread at Casey. I don't know how that came about, but the old station from 1969, which was the Americans had what we call Wilkes on one side of the harbour, and then when it was getting iced in, they moved out, but we built our station on the opposite side, so we didn't get so iced in. Wilkes still had pallets and pallets of food in 82. We raided their flour. We had enough flour because it'd been sitting there for 10 plus years in the snow, buckets and buckets of nuts and biscuits and all still perfectly fine.
Was that American station that was abandoned?
They abandoned that, and it was right on sea level, and it was icing over at the time.
Right. And did you leave a note saying, we've taken all your flour and all your nuts and all your...
No.
Was there anything else that you raided or?
No, not from there really, no, but it was a good find.
Yeah. Did you have any contact with the other countries that had stations there as well? Would you have any contact with them?
Personally, I had a little bit of contact with the New Zealand station, which is near Meadow Sound. Only brief, but yeah. People in radio shack probably did. They probably all talked to each other because they had the equipment. But we had no need to. We had a lot of things for us to do ourselves.
Right. How much downtime and how did you spend your downtime? It wouldn't have been like guys on mining sites now going to the gym and stuff, I wouldn't imagine, in the 80s.
Well, we had our gym.
You did?
I used to gym quite regularly. But if I had my Saturday off, I'd go and bake bread or do something like that. Because we had our expeditions to go out for months at a time, and they had to take all frozen bread with them. So what was being made during the week, we'd go in the freezer. I'd get in and make bread on Saturday or Sunday. So we had fresh bread over the weekend. Or I'd go out and do other work, go load sleds and that for the tractor trains that were going out. Just kept busy. I think that was the best thing to do.
Yeah. Was there, you mentioned going to the club. Was there any restrictions on alcohol and stuff like that? And were any people there drinking too much to deal with their
I think everyone drinks too much at some stage, but I think there was no one, to speak of that, was a real worry to us.
What sort of why have you not been back? What put an end to your and not an end, but why wasn't there a third time?
I met someone and got married, so I stayed home.
Right, and it just wasn't going to be a possibility that
No.
would go down again. Yeah. Do you think you'll ever get there as a recreational thing now?
No. I think I've got other aspirations. I'd like to see Canada and that sort of thing in winter. I've never been into the centre of Australia yet and spent some time in the desert somewhere of extreme.
What do you think you learnt about yourself, Peter, down, if anything? Or were you just too busy? You just didn't spend too much time thinking about what you're...
I think about myself, learn to love yourself. If you can't love yourself, you don't want to be by yourself. I don't feel I have to have people around me all the time, so that's part of just being me.
And this is a question I sometimes ask people, and I think it's a really good question for you because it's really going to mean something. If you could only store one type of food in your pocket, what would it be?
Nuts.
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 They'll keep you going, you reckon?
Fibre and protein.
Well, you were quick off the mark with that anyway. I haven't had a chance to ask you about your childhood, and you said that you just loved adventure. Was it books or movies and things? What's perhaps the most memorable lesson that you ever learnt from your parents?
Never give up. If you have a goal, just keep working towards it. If it's slow, it's slow. Nothing comes easy. That's worthwhile.
I like that. Very, very good. What about if I was to ask you to describe yourself in 3 words?
I'm upright and breathing.
Upright and breathing. That is 3 words.
That was a statement out of a Stephen King book I read ages ago, and I've used it a billion times. Because I think at 70, I'm upright and breathing. I'm mobile. I can do pretty much anything I want to do. So it's important. I feel sorry for those who fall into illness or whatever and can't have the mobility I've got. So for me, upright and breathing is good. I look at the mirror every morning and say, I'm upright and breathing.
Upright and breathing. Well, that was a question I was going to ask you too. What did you think the last time you looked in the mirror?
Well, I looked over the shoulder.
Why?
Well, the fellow in the mirror was not me. He's too old.
Yes.
Yeah, age does creep up on you. In my head, I don't feel my age. I feel I should be back, 50 or somewhere. There.
Yeah. Well, 50 is the new 70. That's what they say. No, 70 is the new 50.
Well,
there you are.
There you go. There you go.
You're on the money. Where did you grow up? Where was your...
I grew up in Brisbane.
In the city?
Unfortunately. I always felt I should be in the country somewhere. But yeah, my early childhood was in Albion, and then eventually we moved straight to Chermside.
All on the north side. What's your favourite childhood memory? Do you have a favourite childhood memory?
Fishing on the Maroochy River with my parents. My father was fishing as much as he could. We used to holiday on the Maroochy River and fish all the time. The whole time we were up there.
Did you do fishing when you were in Antarctica? Can you fish down there?
You can.
Cut a hole in the ice?
I did. That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Or is somewhere you can just fish off the bank. But I had a friend who did catch some fish, little 800 cods. I didn't fish myself. The one thing I did was surprised at actually walking around, looking in the shallow waters. They had what we class as a brittle starfish on the rocks even down there. Very fine. Just looked like a colourful, orangey coloured brittle starfish.
What type of family was it?
Sorry?
Are they a similar type
Oh,
of family?
it was
Or
plenty
they-
of stuff at family for sure. I only ever saw a couple, but it did surprise me to think, hey, Karen, you think about reefs and sort of warmer areas, but they're further afield.
Do you think that this whole interview has been about Antarctica? Is that kind of like one of the highlights of your life, do you think, those 2 years spent down there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right up there with
Right.
the best things that you've done. I asked you what food you'd keep on your pocket. Nuts. Nuts. Well, what's the weirdest food combination you've ever had?
Oh, actually, because you put the word combination there, no, it made me think, because on our trip down, my first trip down on the Nannock, when we were in that big storm, they couldn't cook. They couldn't use the stoves. They couldn't heat anything. So our lunchtime meal was served up as finely cut onions, raw mince
Raw mince.
with a raw egg sitting in the middle. And a lot of guys did meat, but I found it fine. The meat was basically fat-free. They obviously trimmed it back to nothing before they minced it. There's not much I won't eat.
You'd have to be hungry. And you would have been seasick, I would imagine.
I didn't get seasick. I was really, really lucky. Another chap I know, he got on the ship at Hobart, and within minutes he was seasick, and he spent the whole trip in bed. Not nice.
Well, those other dogs would have been picking on him because he wouldn't have been doing too much work, would he?
No.
Well, I was recently on a
Yeah,
tour
plenty of doctor visits.
ship, and that was
That
3 metre
That
swell.
would not be fun. Then you've got to remember you've got to come home.
Yeah, well, thankfully we got off in a nice quiet bay. But now I always ask people, Peter, at the end of the interview, who their favourite royal is. Do you have a favourite royal? It might be a
Yes,
royal penguin or a royal...
No, when I was thinking of Royals, I always think of England. Probably Harry. Probably because he seems more real. He seems to get his hands dirty, gets in trouble. He doesn't seem to be as pompous as some would be.
He's a leveller. Do you think you answer that way because I'm thinking about the people and in Antarctica on your visits, you would have all been equal, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. There wasn't anyone who kind of could have any airs and graces, I guess.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
No, that's really true, actually.
Yeah, right. And a song that can't keep you off the dance floor, what would it be, Peter?
I don't dance.
I've loved hearing about your adventure down there to Antarctica. It's something that I can only aspire to, but I might be on one of the Aurora ships or something, sleeping in my nice warm bed every night, not out on the ice. I would encourage everyone to go and see Peter's photography on Facebook, Peter Ellis Pittsworth. And
No, Peter Ellis Photography.
Pittsworth. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure we'll be able to find you and some of those magnificent photos of. Just quickly before I let you go, how do you go with using the photographic equipment in such extreme cold temperatures? Is there anything that you have to do?
I didn't have a lot of trouble. I did have a couple of rolls of film that I'd taken that would crystallise, and they were useless because it was that cold. Generally, it was okay. Handling your camera, it can be a bit tricky. The old cameras had a lot of metal on them. Back then, my A21 had metal. My Mamiya had metal. So thin gloves so you can actually operate, basically.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be able to press the buttons. Well, I have enjoyed it so much. Thank you for being my guest today
You're
on
welcome.
Big Little Small Talk.
Thanks, Megan.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or listen on iHeartRadio and Community Radio Plus apps.